Hi, I'm Chris Wheeler, Motocross Support Manager from Suzuki Motor of America, and in this video of Ask Suzuki, we have our special guest, Mr. Ryo Okuda from American Showa R&D. He is an expert suspension technician, and he is going to give us a brief explanation of how the separate function air forks work. Then, guide us through some of the basics of how to set the air pressures. Along the way, we are also going to ask Mr. Okuda the top 5 most commonly asked questions about the Showa separate function air fork. Welcome, Mr. Okuda, to Ask Suzuki. What can you tell us about the SFF Air that will help us to understand it better?
Thank you, Chris, for asking me to share my knowledge about our SFF Air and to answer any questions Suzuki customers might have. Let's get started.
Okay, here's the first question. I've been told that when compared to conventional forks, the inner chamber is considered the fork spring rate, the balance chamber is the preload, and the outer chamber is like setting the oil level. Is that a fair comparison?
Yes, the inner air pressure basically acts as your mainspring, similar to coil spring forks. Changes to the inner chamber tend to affect the entire range of travel. The balance pressure is the initial movement, or what some people might equate to preload. Pressure changes to the balance chamber affect ride height, sag, initial fork movement, and front wheel traction, although each chamber is independent, making air pressure changes to one chamber affect the others. The outer air pressure acts like an oil level on coil spring forks. Pressure changes to the outer chamber tend to affect the last third of the suspension travel and give the fork a more progressive feeling. Keep in mind, the right leg is the spring force and the left is the damping force, and they work together. You still need to adjust the compression and rebound damping force adjusters in conjunction with the air pressure.
Thank you for clarifying question 1. Here's question 2. How often do I need to change my spring rate?
Good question. The final air pressure you choose is your spring rate. So once you get that spring rate adjusted to your riding specifications, you probably won't need to make frequent changes, dependent on changing conditions. You'll just need to check those pressures before each riding session, similar to checking the tire pressure before each ride. It's also a good idea to use a suspension settings log to keep track of your changes for future reference.
Great suggestion about keeping a suspension log. Question 3. What is the rider weight for the published standard settings? This would give our customers a baseline to start from and make adjustments from there.
The Suzuki RM-Z450 standard setting is calculated for a 175-pound rider. The inner chamber is set at 171 psi. The balance chamber is set to 171 psi also. The outer chamber is set to 0 psi. Your Suzuki owner's service manual can guide you on the alternate settings to meet individual needs. Another way to dynamically explore different settings is to use our Showa SFF Air support app. With this application, you can simulate different air settings of the SFF Air fork based on your own weight. It also offers a frequently asked question section and graphical information. This app is free of charge for both Apple and Android devices.
The Showa app is convenient and easy to use.
Agreed. Now let's take a look at how to properly adjust each chamber and in what sequence. The Suzuki owner's manual provides detailed instructions on how to make adjustments to get the most out of the RM-Z450 Showa forks. The chambers must be pressurized in a specific sequence. Pressurizing the air chambers is a simple process and requires Suzuki digital air pump. Suzuki recommends you start with the standard settings. First, place the bike on the stand with the front wheel completely off the ground. The symbols on the top right of the fork cap identify the inner and outer chambers. The inner chamber is represented by a solid dot. A semicircle represents the outer chamber. The balance chamber is located on the bottom of the fork leg. Start by removing the air caps. Now decrease the balance air pressure to 142 psi. Next, pressurize the inner chamber to the standard 171 psi. Now adjust the outer chamber to 0 psi. And finally, set the balance chamber pressure to 171 psi.
Great demonstration, Mr. Okuda. While we are on this topic, our customers have their fourth question. When I release the pump from the Schrader valve, it sounds like air is leaking. Does this cause the setting to drop from what I set it to?
When you remove the air pump, a small amount of air will escape. The air you hear is the air evacuating the high-pressure pump hose. Consequently, when you reinstall the pump, you will see a lower pressure due to the volume of air needed to refill the hose. So once you set the pressure, you're done. When you need to readjust or make changes, make sure to start over using the process we have just described.
Thanks, Mr. Okuda. That's a lot of great information. Now, one last question. What happens if I don't check my pressure before every ride and still try to ride my bike? For example, I'm going riding for the weekend with friends and I set the pressure on Friday night. Is that good enough for the weekend?
If there aren't any big changes in temperature and atmospheric pressure within a 48-hour time period, then there shouldn't be any significant changes in the fork performance that will prevent you from riding. However, that depends on the type of riding. If you are an active motocross racer, you should check the pressure between motos after the fork cooldown. If you are a recreational rider, it is recommended checking the pressure once a day before you ride, just as you would check your tire pressure for the best performance.
Thank you, Mr. Okuda, for your time and sharing your knowledge about the Showa SFF Air front suspension.
Thank you.
That wraps up this video of Ask Suzuki. Thanks for watching. We hope that by viewing this video, your riding enjoyment will be improved. Additional information about the SFF can be found in the RM-Z450 Suzuki Owner Service Manual. If you need additional support, contact your local Suzuki dealer.